All right, welcome back to this week's Explainer. I am absolutely beyond pumped to walk you through today's stack, because the ecosystem shifts we are seeing this week are frankly monumental. If you're building, if you're deploying, or even if you're just trying to keep up with the sheer pace of AI right now, you know how incredibly fast things are moving. Today, we're doing a complete full stack review. We're going from the raw compute bedrock all the way up to the consumer UI, and then capping it off with the system admin layer, the governance and defense contracts that are literally rewriting the rules of our industry. So grab your coffee, spin up your terminal, and let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because to really grasp the tools we're using today, we have to understand the massive scale of capital fueling our development environment right now. I mean, think about it. What actually happens when $130 billion hits the tech stack in a single quarter? We are not talking about an annual budget here. This isn't some 10-year forecast. This is a single quarter of infrastructure investment.
Yeah, $130 billion. That staggering Q1 AI infrastructure spend comes entirely from the Big Four: Microsoft, Google, Meta, and Amazon. They are out there laying down the bedrock, the GPUs, the data centers, the power grids. They are building the foundation for everything we do. It's the ultimate base layer that makes all the agents and tools we're about to talk about mathematically possible.
So that brings us to Layer 1, back-end tools and AI agents.
This right here is where the magic actually happens. If you're a builder, this is going to completely change how you structure your workflows this week. I am totally geeking out over this drop. Cursor just shipped a massive TypeScript SDK, and it completely frees its AI agents from your desktop IDE. You can run these agents locally now or push them to cloud VMs. Want to swap between Claude and GPT? It's literally one line of code. You can hook them directly into Model Context Protocol servers. But honestly, the absolute killer feature is the pipeline integration. Devs are already dropping this into their CI/CD pipelines to automatically fix build failures and submit pull requests. It is essentially an automated junior developer living right inside your pipeline.
And this brilliantly illustrates the push we're seeing for heavy-duty long-run capabilities. Mistral, the French AI lab, just unleashed Medium 3.5. We're talking about a 128 billion parameter open weights model, boasting a massive 256K context window. And in coding performance, it's going toe-to-toe with Claude 4.5. Plus, they've upgraded their Vibe CLI so you can have remote agents running sessions in cloud sandboxes before syncing back to your local machine. They even added a deep research work mode in the shot. Open weights just means we get to build with serious power on our own terms.
The speed at which this whole agentic space is moving is just mind-blowing, and the market absolutely knows it. Take Parallel Web Systems, founded by former Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal. They just raised $100 million to hit a $2 billion valuation. And what's wild is they nearly tripled their valuation from $740 million in just 5 months. They're laser-focused on building the precise internet and research APIs that these AI agents desperately need so they can execute long-running tasks without hallucinating all over the place.
Which leads us perfectly to Manus. If you've ever tried building an agent, you know the absolute pain of standard sandboxes. They reset, you lose your entire environment, and your bot basically dies. Well, Manus just shipped Cloud Computer. It is a persistent Ubuntu virtual machine. Your tools stay installed, you can deploy a 24/7 Slack bot, schedule your scrapers, or spin up self-hosted apps using simple, plain English prompts. It even gives you full SSH and a web terminal. It is finally an always-on home for your autonomous code.
Moving up the stack, we hit Layer 2, front-end, consumer AI and devices.
So, we've seen the massive back-end models and the dev tools, but how is all this raw compute actually reaching the end user? Let's check out the UI and UX layer. Google's Gemini is completely streamlining the daily workflow. Forget chatting, getting a block of text, and manually copying and pasting it into a doc. Gemini can now generate the actual files directly. You prompt it, and boom! It spits out a .docx, an Excel spreadsheet, a PDF, or even LaTeX and Markdown files straight to your device. It totally bridges that annoying gap between the chat interface and the final deliverable.
Meanwhile, over in the Apple ecosystem, iOS 27 is gearing up to bring generative AI way deeper into the native Photos app. Leaked steps show 3 major upcoming tools: Extend, which uses generative AI to expand backgrounds; Enhance, for automatically fixing lighting and quality; and Reframe, which lets you actually shift perspectives on spatial photos. We're expecting to see these deep, native integrations officially unveiled for the developer community at Developer Conference on June 8th.
And hey, speaking of leaks, we just got an incredible sneak peek at the future of on-device AI. Google accidentally dropped an experimental app called Cosmo onto the Play Store and then very quickly pulled it. It was a 1.13 gigabyte local assistant running Gemini Nano entirely on device. It packed 14 different skills, including browser agents and deep research capabilities. Having that kind of agentic power running locally with zero latency, that is exactly where mobile is heading.
Now, what's really interesting about this next one is how the hardware itself is morphing into an autonomous agent. Take Mira's smart glasses. They function as a literal second brain. They don't just record things, they actively monitor your day, build up a conversational profile, and remember your patterns. But more importantly, they take action. They'll book appointments, fire off emails, and even live translate conversations in over 60 languages. It's essentially an agent you wear right on your face.
All right, on to Layer 3. Benchmarks and security hardening.
As these tools embed themselves deeper into our daily lives, QA, InfoSec, and benchmarking become absolutely critical. For developers and enterprise users handling sensitive data, OpenAI is rolling out some serious enterprise-grade hardening for ChatGPT. You can now opt in to completely disable your traditional passwords and SMS recovery. It strictly requires passkeys or hardware security keys, dramatically shortens your session timeouts, and crucially, it automatically excludes your conversations from future model training. This is a massive, absolutely crucial step up for strict data privacy.
But how do these hard-end models actually perform creatively? Well, Contra Labs just released their Human Creativity Benchmark, and the results are pretty fascinating. They had human professionals blind score the outputs, and they found that no single model dominates the entire pipeline. Claude easily takes the crown for raw ideation, Gemini takes the lead when you're talking about structured design systems, and ChatGPT is the strongest closer for the refinement phase. It just goes to show that a multi-model stack is, for sure, the only way to get best-in-class results across the board right now. Finally, we reach Layer 4, lawsuits, drama, and defense. Think of this as the system admin layer of governance. These are the legal, cultural, and geopolitical shifts that dictate the very environment we all build in. We're going to look strictly at the facts of what's happening across the ecosystem this week. So the crucial point is that the foundational provider for a massive chunk of our developer ecosystem is currently sitting in court. Elon Musk's trial against Sam Altman is entering day 2, with Musk arguing that OpenAI completely abandoned its original nonprofit roots. What's at stake in this 4-week trial isn't just an $852 billion valuation or a looming IPO. It is the fundamental stability of the entire API ecosystem that thousands of downstream developers rely on every single day.
Meanwhile, over at Anthropic, developer and content creator Theo Brown published a highly publicized open letter urging Anthropic engineers to quit. He described the environment as having a culture of fear and poor code quality, and even offered to help match the vesting schedules of engineers who jump ship. Now, while some developers in the community are dismissing the letter as pure clickbait, Brown maintains it reflects genuine, widespread internal frustration.
Looking at the defense sector, we're observing a massive operational shift at Google. Back in 2018, you might remember Google famously declined to renew its Project Maven contract with the Pentagon after massive employee pushback over drone targeting. Fast forward to 2024, and a new internal memo from Kent Walker, Google's president of global affairs, explicitly defends allowing the Pentagon to use Google AI on classified systems for lawful government purposes. Administration officials and VCs like Scott Cooper have definitely publicly noted this stark contrast in response.
Now, this shift certainly hasn't happened without friction. Over 600 employees signed a letter protesting the new defense deal. In an attempt to assuage these internal concerns about misuse, Walker's memo asserted that Google's tools are not appropriate for domestic mass surveillance or for use with autonomous weapons without human oversight.
Let's zoom out and see how this builds across the entire industry landscape. The Department of War has secured agreements to deploy frontier models on highly classified IL-6 and IL-7 networks. Just look at this roster. SpaceX, OpenAI, Google, NVIDIA, Reflection, Microsoft, AWS, and Oracle are all signed on. The lone major frontier lab missing from this massive defense integration is Anthropic. Which brings us to the ultimate question for us as builders, engineers, and users. We kicked off this explainer looking at $130 billion in compute, open-weight SDKs from Mistral and Cursor that empower everyday indie developers, and we ended with massive, classified government integrations. As we push to prod tomorrow, we really have to ask ourselves, will the future of the tech stack we rely on be dictated by the open-source community building in public or by the closed-door defense contracts securing the biggest models? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep building, and I'll see you in the next one.